They still export the most silver in the world. It's just insane. Silver and gold should be and will be one day priced 1-to-1 when the scam of the COMEX and the silver rigging. Silver gold ratio was always set by humans and based off of not market trading, but it was actually set by people depending on how much they could get out of the ground. It's ranged from anywhere from 10 to 20-to-1. And then with the advent of computers and derivatives, we went off the silver standard, off the gold standard. All of a sudden, it changed from 10 to 20-to-1 to we were up at what 100 and something to 1 just recently.
Yeah, just last year during the virus, or no, 2020, right? Wasn't it the virus hiccup back in March of 2020? Silver tanked, but gold didn't tank as much, so the ratio got up to like what 126 or something.
Yeah, and it's basically it's pure manipulation. At the time, it was J.P. Morgan. We all knew that because they were the monster in the room, as they always are in silver, whether they're holding everybody's physical silver in ETFs or holding all the derivative short contracts, which they got in trouble for, or giving leased silver to Bank of America, you name it, anything to keep the price down. But the only thing that screamed, like right now it's 79-to-1. The only thing that screams 79-to-1 is the price. And that price is a fake price coming out of the ground. I think it's 7-to-1 right now. Yeah. Historically, I mean, nothing makes sense since the early 1970s when computers and derivatives were the driving factor in pricing of gold and silver. It's all fraud now. And you could tell by the volumes on the COMEX. I mean, billions of ounces. I think the COMEX has 90 to 100 billion ounces of silver trading every year, when in history, it's only like what, 60, 65 billion have been mined in history. But every year there's these crazy things called futures and options that are setting the price of silver. And that's why the gold silver ratio is so out of whack. I don't think the bankers really care about the price of gold. I think it's all about the price of silver. Keeping that price of silver suppressed is the number one thing for the bankers to keep this fraudulent monetary system going. That's what should set the ratio. And then you can even argue that it should be whatever's being used as a monetary metal versus industrial. But above ground silver, there's about 6 billion ounces of above ground silver and about 6 billion ounces of above ground gold, which screams 1-to-1.
Yeah.
So the only thing that's out of whack is the price of silver. Everything else is screaming that this is going to correct. And I think it's going to correct very soon.
Well, something that's interesting. There's only about 6 billion ounces of silver above ground. If you ask someone like CPM Group or Metals Focus, they're going to tell you that number is 50 or 60 billion ounces or above. They count all the mined silver throughout all history. It's above ground. But what they don't mention is 40 or 50 billion of it is in landfills and no one tracked where they put it. A piece of metal that's above ground and in my hand is worth one thing. If it's attached to some circuit board and it's buried in a landfill, what is that worth? Well, Keith Neumeyer would tell you that's worth basically nothing because it costs more to get it. They are so good at embedding this industrial silver into the paste and into the circuit boards. It's like they throw fire at it. They throw chemicals at it. They cannot profitably figure out how to remove silver from some of these products. So they just end up throwing the hardware into landfills because there's no way to recycle it. Now, is that silver worth the spot price, 23, 24? No, it's got a value of 0 because they can't figure out how to recycle it.
Well, yes, great point. And, you would go in and recycle it if silver was, $10,000 an ounce. And that would make sense. It might make sense to go in and try to get that stuff out. But even with that argument, with the Jeffrey Christian argument, that's a 10-to-1 ratio. And right now we're sitting at 79-to-1. But that ratio is completely ridiculous because no, it's not going to be, we're not going to dig up every landfill to find the 0.1 ounce of silver in a in a circuit board, things like
Yeah.
that.
Literally, Keith Newmeyer told us he's invested in 3 recycling companies, and 2 of them have gone bankrupt, and the third one's probably going to go bankrupt, according to what it says. They have tried. They've tried really hard to figure out recycling, and he says right now he thinks it would cost it to be just making money. You'd need about $70 an ounce for silver to make sense to recycle.
I would, yeah, I did hear, and I mean, out of all the CEOs, obviously Keith is the one who's not afraid to stick his head out and say, hey, you other CEOs of silver mining companies need to wake up. I was screaming about that years ago. This is your commodity that you have to defend. It shouldn't be us, keyboard jockeys out here analyzing silver to defend your product. I mean, this is your employees' lives. This is your community's lives. These silver mines that have to shutter because the price is so low. Mexico is the biggest example of a country that hates its people. Mexico has exported about 30% of all silver that's ever been mined. Had Mexico not done that because of the price suppression, said, no, we're not going to export silver anymore because this is our valuable commodity, we're going to hang on to it, they would be the richest country in the world. And their people wouldn't be living in squalor. Not all of them, but some of them are not doing well. Wow. And they still export the most silver in the world. It's just insane. Silver and gold should be and will be one day priced 1-to-1 when the scam of the COMEX and the silver rigging ends. Picture, it's great for people who have silver in their hand. It's not great for the mine, obviously, but it's great for people. And that's where I always thought mining companies, I was a big investor in mining companies. Yeah. I think now they're too valuable to own. If we have a banking collapse, the first thing the government's going to do is going to nationalize all the silver they can get their hands on. So, I mean, that's an extreme version. And if you're a mining share owner, you need to have physical as a hedge against nationalization. Because if that world happens,
you don't think it'd be gold first before silver, the nationalization?
Well, not in Mexico and South America, where silver is
the main.
Remember, we're going to see a shift to fair market value. So yeah, gold's important, but silver is so much more important than gold in almost every single respect.